Welcome back for part two. We're doing Wheel of Time. Now we're continuing the Perrin arc, which is taking longer than the girls, but
It's
it's the patriarchy.
the patriarchy. Plus, it's just a longer arc.
And it's probably the most important arc of his part of this whole series as well.
Yeah, because he establishes pretty early, who and what he is, and then it's just a matter of kind of refining that. As we've kind of ranted about a little bit, that's one of the places where I think his story goes off the rails. Is later it kind of seems like we're just rehashing old material, but we can talk about that more when we get there. And I'll try and be as
and for those that
conscious as
follow
possible.
both, the trainer we were thinking of, Danny Sugart from T Nation. And now it was actually, you brought up her husband. Her husband's the one that annoys me because he writes all these long, your diet is stupid stuff about fad diets, and then plugs his velocity diet, which is all protein shakes for a month. And
I thought he was one of those that used to be good back when T Nation was pretty reliable, and then he turned into one of those annoying clickbaity guys of why your trainer is wrong to have you do this like this. So I'm like, hold on a second. That's stupid. Stop saying things like that.
yeah, it was just the contradiction in. He was
She's been consistently good whenever I've read her. She's been consistently good.
Okay.
All right.
Back to Wheel of Time. We left off what, 32?
Yeah, I'll try and stay alive and hopefully not offend myself. I smell like a pubescent boy who hasn't learned how to shower and use deodorant.
So like my son.
Yes, because I keep alternating between shivering and just being drenched in sweat. So
for those that just followed the Wheel of Time part and you didn't see the last part, he's got the common cough. So
yeah, and it's really annoying. All right. So right off the bat, I like that we get, so Tam and Abel aren't just, background. They aren't just set dressing, that, they're actually there and they matter. So
well, damn, I just had a cancellation, but it wasn't my next client. It was the one after that.
Oh,
damn.
We should leave for Watch Hill soon, Verin announced the next morning, with sunrise just pearling the sky outside. So don't dawdle. Perrin looked up from his cold porridge to meet a steady gaze. I expected no arguments. After a moment, she added thoughtfully, "Do not think this means I will aid you in any foolishness. You are a tricksome young man. Try none of it with me." Tam and Abel paused with spoons halfway to their mouths, exchanging surprised looks. Clearly, they had gone their own way and the Aes Sedai theirs before this. After a moment, they resumed eating, although with pensive frowns. So clearly the Aes Sedai are going to be more proactive, and it has to do with Perrin, which is not lost on them because they ain't no dummies.
Yeah. Which, some of that is probably their plots and etc. But the other part is he is tugging them along. So
yeah, there has to be at least some element to that. And we see,
or their plots are in line with the pattern pulling them along. So
we see much more of that, later as Rand interacts more and more Aes Sedai. But we saw it in the Eye of the World too. I mean, that was, she certainly didn't think of it in those terms, but that's essentially what happened to Moraine when she upended her and Siwan's carefully laid plans and went running off to the Eye of the World instead of the White Tower. And Perrin ain't no dummy either. She intended to meddle, of course. Aes Sedai always did, but having her where he could see her was surely better than leaving her behind his back. So he's going to play along. And we get we get a bit of the beginnings of the unraveling of Faile's backstory on page 512. I look forward to seeing some of your country. My father raises sheep. Her tone was definite. She was not going to stay unless he tied her up. For a moment, he came close to considering it, but the danger from white cloaks should not be too great. He only intended to look today. I thought he was a merchant, he said. He raises sheep too. Spots of crimson bloomed on her cheeks. Maybe her father was a poor man and not a merchant at all. So, yeah, her
Which is
father
funny
keeps
because he went straight to she's probably embarrassed about her past. Then it's then the other direction,
yeah.
which is how these girls get you.
Poor Loyal can't go long because, you know, he's 8 feet tall.
Yeah, but was it? Did we not see it already? Where he was like super sneaky? Was that in Great Hunt with Rand?
When they're sneaking around, he can be, yeah. He
Yeah,
can move.
he can be like super
quietly.
quiet. Yeah,
Yeah, but just walking along cross country, it's going to be noticeable that, hey, that guy ain't right.
yeah. I think it was when they got the horn from the Dark
Oh
Friend
yeah.
camp.
So
Yeah.
yep. So he sneaks through the woods with him, like with Rand, right into that camp, and helps take away the chest that has it. And then again when they're sneaking around in the or the slums in Karheen called the Foregate, when they're sneaking around trying to avoid the Trollocs there, he's sneaky again. And Perrin wants Loyal to keep an eye on Atlanta while he's gone because she's kind of creepy and rubs him the wrong way. Which is great.
With Atlanta, she could rub you the right way.
All right.
Giggity. Oh, we're gonna get banned for that with state of current YouTube politics.
Who knows?
We we assaulted a fictional character.
Yeah, well, we're part of the cis white colonial patriarchy. Everybody knows that.
That's why they got you with their bug.
We start to get an idea of how bad things are on 515 when they're setting off, and Perrin thinks they should stay undercover, and Althor and Cawthon tell them there's no point. Most of the farms have already been abandoned. There's no one here. So you get an idea of how widespread the damage is, and start to get an idea because even they don't know the extent of things yet. I like that 516 that you get some of Tam's history coming out of he knows, you know, war and campaigns, and so he just blurts out maybe 200. Tam said maybe more, probably more, and then calmly explains. Master Cawthon looks surprised, and Tam just calmly explains, think about it. Brain fog. Faile, and this has kind of been our running theme with Perrin's storyline is Perrin and Faile together, you know, as a pair, as a complementary pair, and that's why she's so useful here, because she gives, sometimes purposely because that's what she wants, and sometimes just instinctively, she gives that little extra push to help support Perrin, because she lends her firsthand knowledge of Trollocs and Trolloc raids, to point out that, Perrin's making a good point, that it doesn't make sense that they haven't hit Emmons Field yet, if there are 200 or 300.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, and I like that because he saw what everybody else didn't, including Waters. She has a little moment where she's really proud of him, and
mhm. Yeah, and Tam kind of sees it the way he responds to Perrin. I think Tam kind of sees it, but his experience was with normal wars and like border skirmishes, basically between Ilion and Tyr, and then the Blood Snow, then the Aiel War, which went back and forth for 2 or 3 years, I think, before the Blood Snow in front of Tar Valon. So that was his experience. So all he knows, from way back when they show up in the Eye of the World, and he tells Rand, what I know from others, so hopefully it's enough to keep us alive. So he's relying on hearsay, and so he can know, this doesn't seem right to me just instinctively, but he has no personal frame of reference to figure out why. Whereas Perrin's actually had to deal with Trollocs more directly than anyone else in the Two Rivers, except for now, the warders that are there, and then Faile.
Well, you can't discount the fact that the Two Rivers has some experience because they've been there before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Tam, he basically fought a few and then went down
Mm-hmm.
in that instance, but at the same time, all the others have some experience of being raided.
Which raids on farms is pretty typical of the medieval setting. And that's one of the nutty things about studying medieval history, is depending on the era, if your monarch wasn't very strong, you would have raiding within a country, that barons and counts and nobles would raid each other if you didn't have a strong enough monarch to hold them together and stop that, and keep them focused on raiding other people. But the Two Rivers is so isolated that they don't have to worry about that. They worry about wolves and weather, and as they say, the occasional bear or mountain lion that might come down from the mountains.
It's funny, I got the Better Angels of Our Nature up there with Steven Pinker, and he's talking about feudal Europe. And basically the theme of the whole book is how less violent we've gotten over time. And feudal Europe, he describes to some degree, and I'm going to paraphrase like 3 chapters into one statement here, but if basically life was raids and wars between different feudal groups with small respites to grow food.
It was a pretty brutal and usually short existence.
And it was the fact that there a lot of times it was not even a rhyme or reason to the raids. It was just raiding season.
So back to the point. 517. They seek wherever is weakest, wherever they can kill the most. My father. Let's not get into that yet. I have thought of that, Tam said quietly, but I can't think why. Until we know, luck is as good an answer as any. Perhaps, Verin said, joining them. It is a lure. There's Verin gonna Verin. And this is where I disagree with Scott, who's been arguing with me ever since I brought this up, and insisting that there's no way Verin could have known that Perrin would be there. Now, maybe not, but she could have had a good idea that one of them was going to show up, because that was the entire point of Fane going there. And the Shadow knew that Fane was going there because the Shadow sent Slayer to kill him
Well, most likely,
and sent the Trollocs to kill him and to harry the two rivers.
most
Oh.
likely with Fane there and the Trollocs and Verin and everything, it's because they thought Rand would go.
Probably, yes. Certainly that's what Fane wanted, because he, way back in the Great Hunt, he's still operating under that, you come and confront me, or I will harry everything and everyone you ever knew and loved.
Well, and also he's got experience with figuring out that Rand will react to a situation if one of his friends is in danger, because he knows Rand went on the hunt because of the dagger for Matt. But same plan didn't work twice.
Certainly didn't work the way he wanted it to, because you know, the pattern had other ideas, and this was Perrin's problem to deal with. But I think she knew, or at least strongly suspected, that this was a lure to try and get one of, if not all of the boys to come back and then trap them, ideally Rand. Now, I don't think she clearly knew how things were going to play out, but I think she had, you know, she's got a strong enough mind and enough of a intelligence network to make a deduction that there's a good chance one of the Ta'veren is going to be here, and someone should be there to help guide things along.
Yeah, I think this is, as we talked in length last time, this is I'm more in line with Scott. Because I personally think it was more of a Ta'veren tug with the pattern.
That's the, you know, that's the Deus Ex Machina that's always there, that Jordan uses.
Which I guess you could say, well, her decisions were made because of that tug.
She is one of the few people that I think could and would recognize that tug, and then
well, she does on occasion.
That, yeah, not fight against it.
Yeah,
actually embrace it and follow it along.
Well, now that we bring that up, I think because she does on occasion recognize it and actually outwardly says it.
Yeah, there's a major spoiler thing way down down the line.
I have a feeling she would have addressed this one as well, because this is one of the major events in all of the series. So she would have made mention of feeling something pulling at her.
Well, later on, she's much more familiar with that individual. She has more of a relationship there, and I think it's more plausible that she would open up. Whereas here, she's still in mysterious Aes Sedai mode. Plus, she has another Aes Sedai with her. She can't fully open up because
Alana doesn't know Perrin is. She doesn't even know Rand is a dragon. Yeah. She
wouldn't know,
because they wouldn't have the news yet, because they came on the ways. It would travel faster than the news.
You're right, and Verin makes an oblique reference about Rand, and when
what she might know is the vision in the sky.
Yeah,
because everybody should know that by now.
That certainly is going to be making the rounds. But then when Tam and Abel ask about their boys, she gives them a very sharp look of, you know, watch what you say. So yeah, but she's very she's very Verin. You know, in this exchange still on 517, It might be so, Verin said complacently. It might be. Frowning in a preoccupied manner, she dug a steel nib pin and a small cloth-bound book from her pouch and opened a little leather case at her belt and held an ink bottle and sand shaker. Wiping the pin absentmindedly on her sleeve, she began jotting in the book despite the awkwardness of writing while writing. So she's taking notes on what's going on here because that's what she does. So
Then we get a lot of name dropping. So we're starting to learn the Two Rivers people, which kind of becomes important because of what they become later. You kind of get the who's who.
Yeah. And that's what I was skipping to was the Alcenes here is I like Perrin's instinctive masculine response here to Will, who's far too pretty and smiley, and doesn't like the way that he's looking at Faile.
Well, and there's some consistency here because we go back to book 1 when Aram is flirting with Egwene.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of gets that puffed up attitude a little bit as well on behalf of his friend, but he still gets the same kind of reaction.
He doesn't like pretty playboys, and this is something stupid and annoying from one of the many things of the series of they tried to have a sexual tension there when it was really about him viewing her as a younger sister and being instinctively protective of her feelings, that he figured were going to get hurt because that's the kind of person he saw when he looked at Aram. It's the kind of person he sees when he looks at Will. But more problematic things that our feminist critics are not going to like about Jordan and his toxic masculinity is Faile isn't mad about it. She's actually laughs and seems relatively pleased because there is a difference between being possessive and treating someone like a possession. The one is toxic, the other is actually endearing. So
it is a fine line.
And she's
now you're just essentializing women, by the way.
Yeah,
that's exactly what the article would say. I've learned to speak woke.
Well, women are essential, so shut up. So that this is flattering to her. This is, from her point of view, this is progress because she's been trying to get Perrin to stop trying to push her away, to let her be part of his journey and part of his life. And so here he is being pulling her closer, being a little possessive, but he's not treating her like it. Now you can guarantee that and we see later that when he does try and treat her as a possession, when he does try and make her, stay here, go there, she's not going to put up with that. But this is different, and this is endearing to her and flattering. It's how he's supposed to act as far as she's concerned.
Well, you brought up an interesting concept there. Possessing someone versus how did you say it?
Being possessive versus treating someone like a possession.
Yes. Okay. So, and that's the difference. Where's the target of your emotion, right? His target is Will. His target is not her. So when we look at the differences, he postured to say, Will, don't even try. Whereas treating her as a possession would be like, don't even think about it to her. It's the other way around. He never even addressed her. He addressed Will. And so one of the signs of a possible abusive relationship is controlling who your friends are. And that's on the side of you take the person, so your significant other, and say, you can't talk to this person or this person or this person. Whereas he did it the other way around. He made it clear to this person that mind your manners.
So I love the interaction here as we meet the kind of the extended family and have the interaction and the banter and back and forth of you know, yeah, every family has one. Every family has that Conger or Copland or Sin kind of character as kind of the patriarch is talking here about not, no one thinks you're a dark friends, or how do you know? And everyone gives the one lady a look of stop embarrassing us. But where is it? 522. Perrin grinned to himself. In her green riding silks, they all took Faile for nobly born, and he had to admit she carried it off beautifully. Snicker. Okay. Put a pin in that for later. It's a great scene because just as he so often does, that makes these scenes work. It's a great scene in and of itself. It's a great little self-contained moment, but then there are bigger implications. You're actually seeing so much of what we've been told in reference or in passing about the two rivers, and now you're actually seeing it in action. And Perrin's going to kind of criticize them here in a minute about everyone trying to hold on to their own individual farm, and it's keeping everyone separated when we need to go to, the towns and hole up and support each other together that way. But you still, it makes sense in their minds because, again, this is like a really bad weather event or a really, really bad wolf raids on the flocks or whatever. This isn't something that they have an experience with, so they're just winging it, but their instinct is to be on their guard and be ready to fight. It's just not in a way that is most productive. Because you've got a bunch of individual leaders, you've got a bunch of family clan patriarchs, rather than a Perrin bringing all of those individual leaders under one banner, which is because there was no one like that yet. And he has that personal magnetism in the mechanics of the world. It's his being Verin. But if you've ever met someone really charismatic, there is something to that. There are certain people that just kind of take over a room when they walk in.
And then the moment of honesty. Why are they after you? And he's, I killed some of them.
Yeah, I loved his Faile opened her mouth angrily, but Perrin waved her to silence. Her obedience surprised him so he stared at her for a moment before speaking. Maybe she was ill. Myself, I killed some of them. For a wonder, the gasps that rounded the room did not make him cringe inside, and neither did the thought of what he had done. They killed a friend of mine and would have killed me. I didn't see my way clear to let them. That's the short of it. And then Verin pipes in to add that little extra push, kind of same kind of thing Faile does.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get Lord Luke.
Oh yeah.
That's where that chapter ends, is Lord Luke is coming. I like his introduction here because to me there's an interesting parallel where we first met Faile and the Dingleberry hunters for the horn, kind of puffed up dorks, just making up wild stories. And Luke initially kind of puts on those airs. It gives you, for me anyway, that's the feeling I get, and the kind of the reminiscence I get is thinking back to that scene. But then the more you see of them, the more you see that there's something else going on here, that he's not like those guys, which is great. And you have to start, scratching your head and getting creeped out by him at the same time.
I had some thoughts, but they're all spoiler levels, so which we need to get on to because I'm running short on time here.
Okay, well, I already kind of referenced the main point of this chapter, which was Perrin finally convincing them to go on to Emmons Field, take as much as they could carry and go there.
Yeah, thinking like farmers too, but the weeds will take everything.
Man, ain't that the truth?
What did you have, like 2 days off and they killed your?
I had like 3 days I couldn't check the garden, and then the mites and the aphids came in, and one of the first things they go after is the green beans, which annoys me because it's one of the few vegetables I can get my daughter to eat, and they just, and I can get it to recover, but I'm gonna have to prune out almost all of it, and then it's gonna be really slow coming back, and it was just starting to produce, so it's very annoying. And I'm too tired to go do the yard, but the grass is growing up in annoying fashion, which means that it's starting to poke through and invade some of my fruit trees, and I need to get that pulled out. Stupid Bermuda grass. And Perrin picks up an entourage. We talk more about that later as it becomes more of a thing.
Well, it's kind of like the first steps in his leadership role, like I talked about with Rand in the first few books. First he was in charge of Matt as he was sick, and then he was in charge of Huron and Loyal and Celine, and then he was in charge of Ingtar and Company, and then he did hit his little kind of stint of running away, and then he was in charge of all of Tyr.
All right. Do you actually want to stop it there or
Well, how
go
much
to
in
the end of this
spoilers do we want to
chapter?
talk about?
I don't have a ton. We mentioned some things about Verin.
Yeah, well, I don't have a ton of time. I've got about 15 minutes. So for those in the audience, we're heading into spoilers.
Yeah, because they're about to free the prisoners and then go running off hunting Trollocs. So that's a good place. I usually like to get to the end of a chapter, but this chapter could easily be 2 chapters because of the way it breaks up of when Perrin finally stops warning people and gathering his little entourage is kind of an end point. And then there's a good chunk of chapter left where they sneak in and free the prisoners from the White Cloaks. Ugh. And I'm running out of gas.
So, all right, officially spoiler section. With the Luke thing, I kind of was torn because I couldn't remember, because I know we get the prophecies in book 2 that mention him, but and I thought personally it was pretty obvious who he was from those, but I don't know, because it doesn't specifically say so. I still consider it a spoiler.
Yeah. Well, the prophecy mentions a psalm, and I can't remember at what point we hear the story about a psalm. I think it's when I just brain farted on the head of the castle there in Shinar. Agomar is telling Nynaeve about the fall of Malkir, and I think that he mentions the infant Assam, Lan's cousin, in that story, because Moraine, when Verin is talking about those dark prophecies, Moraine thinks about not letting Lan can't hear this, because if he thinks there's any chance that he has a blood relative still alive, then who knows what he'll do. So we do get that, but
which is, we talked about.
Hold that thought. I'm such an old dork. I could have just looked it up, but I wanted to have my book for some reason. So I was double checking that dark prophecy, and it does mention them in that mention both names in that same stanza. So page 105, blood calls blood, when Verin is reading through all of it. And the part about Luke and Assam: Luke came to the mountains of doom, Assam waited in the high passes. The hunt has now begun, the shadows hounds now course and kill. One did live and one did die, but both are. The time of change has come. Blood feeds blood, blood calls blood, blood is and blood was and blood shall ever be. So,
which is funny, but by that, Luke killed Assam, because he's the one that's in the real world, and Assam's in the wolf dream.
Yeah, that is something that is never fully explained, and I like it. We even get some perspective from him way later in the series, and I like that bit is left a bit of mystery. It is never fully explained, but
when you're a wolf and you die, you end up in the wolf dream, and we would just have to assume Assam is a wolf brother, but he went to the dark end of that.
I never thought of that before. We never get any kind of hint of that, but that is interesting.
Because if he was a wolf brother before, but he was raised and he came across his first wolves as dark hounds, then it would make sense that he would manifest in that same way. So then he was
Yeah.
killed in the real world. He's in the wolf dream, but because of this crazy tearing of the fabric, which you would have in the blight, it merged the two.
Yeah. Well, the main thing I was looking up there was that we have seen the name before, and we saw it in connection with Assam.
Mhm.
So which we will get explicitly later when the Trollocs start chanting Assam after he's wounded.
In our section of alternate endings, since we have all these characters present, basically almost all of them, we talked about having Tam and Abel killed the Mandrid. Would have been fun. Having Lan actually fight Luke instead of this kind of lame Perrin Isam battle in the world of dreams would have accomplished a few goals at once. First of all, apparently Luke's badass enough to kill Isam. Isam was his cousin, and if we had had some way of him knowing that and him fighting Luke in the last battle, that would have been kind of cool. Because what we didn't offer with our Tam and Abel killing the Mandrid was an alternate ending for Lan, and that would have been a good little thing to throw in there.
Yeah.
Because Luke just kind of becomes nothing. It almost like Sanderson just says, well, we're just going to make Isam the central theme.
Because his interactions with Perrin eventually become exclusively of the wolf dream.
But even when he's the assassin in Farmading,
yeah,
he came out of the wolf dream as Isam to do the killing. It wasn't Luke. So we never really get kind of closure on what happens to Luke if he just is randomly dead somewhere after Isam is dead.
Yeah. That whole sequence between Perrin and Slayer, to me, was not as satisfying as it could be because it felt anticlimactic and because it kept freaking going. It went on for so long. It's kind of like what we complained about with the attacks on the Mandrid is it didn't seem as epic as it could have been, should have been, especially for Lan, because this is the third time we've seen this, right? So that to me left it made it feel anticlimactic when Lan finally killed the Mandrid.
And what I mean, there's so many ways it could have gone, and maybe it's too obvious so that he wanted to throw a wrinkle in, but Perrin could have been there with the combination of, so we got this book going right now where there's a conflict with the White Cloaks and the Two Rivers folk. He could have been with the Two Rivers folk and the White Cloaks in combination in the right way, because Galad's an honorable man, and the wolves of the real world coming in to help with the final battle to kill the twisted ones.
That would have made for a nice, closing of the circle there.
Yeah, you could have closed the circle there. You could have had a spot for Lan. It wouldn't have been as cartoony. And yeah, maybe it's too obvious and it wouldn't have thrown people off, but it would have been dramatic, even though it was the obvious answer. And then you could have had a reunion with him and Matt. Matt being the general in that situation, being like, I need your men here.
To the point about Verin, I don't remember which book it is. It's like the second to the last one, I think, where she keeps getting stuck trying to go somewhere because Matt's pulling her. And part of why I think she's so open about that, one, is because Sanderson is really cartoony with Matt. And that is one of those Matt sections that's annoyingly cartoony and is way longer than it needs to be.
In Sanderson's defense on that, and to some of the critiques I read with the worst things about Wheel Time, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of them do center on Sanderson's writing of Matt. He acknowledges
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
had trouble with it, and he understands the critiques of himself on that. So he shows his own writing
And
vulnerability there.
it does get better. The portrayals of all of the characters do get better from the first through the third and final book that he does. So he's certainly making a cognizant effort with it. But also Verin just has been through a lot and has more of a relationship with the Ta'veren now, that I think she's fully willing to open up and explain to Matt what's going on. She also needs Matt to do something for her. She has something she wants Matt to do. And so she's willing to lay things out and explain it to convince him to do what she wants, to take this letter and follow her instructions.
Well, and realistically, we talked about the difference between her and Walrain. Walrain would have kept trying to manipulate, where she knew the right answer was open honesty, which is, I mean, I guess if you're doing it for a purpose, it's still manipulation. It's just less covert.
Yes. Well, plus we just see from the way she was kind of experimenting with the curiosity of being pulled by a Ta'veren thread. And she's like, this is interesting. Let me experiment.
Let me scribble in my book.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think that that's a lot of what is going on silently in this book with her looking at Perrin, and Perrin not knowing what's going on in her head as she takes notes. And I think it's a lot of what happens later, but we actually get the full explanation because she's at a point where she can not only can because she has a connection that lets her feel more open, but she needs to your point, is she knows how to manipulate Matt, for lack of a better word. That okay, this technique is what will work with Matt best because this is his personality.
Which again, I go back to, it would have worked better on me than the other way around. So yeah, he's it's the personality trait, openness, right? You also tend to be receptive to that in other people. And when you start seeing any kind of closed personality, you start questioning them to some degree. Well, that's probably a good sign we need to stop.
Yeah, I think I had another thought for spoilers, but the brain fog is real right now. So
what was it in regards to?
I don't remember. I think it was more stuff to do with Luke Slayer. But he's not going away just yet, so we'll have more time to talk.
Yeah, we
about
have plenty of time to talk about him
through the last chapters of Perrin's story here.
One of Sanderson's best moments, I think, was the scene from Slayer's mind when he was in the city that's in the Blight. And that was a perspective we hadn't gotten to see yet. Not just his mind, but the city there. To that point, we thought it was all Trollocs and rot, basically.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a cool little scene. But yeah, we got plenty of time. I'm thinking we got two parts left on Perrin. We got the rescue and the Trolloc hunt, and then we got the defending of Eamon's Field.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to segregate that of sections left of things that happen there. As well, next time we'll get through the wandering around hunting Trollocs and all that happens there, and then we'll finish up with what happens when he gets stuck in Edmund's Field and has to defend it.
Sounds good. All right, we'll do it again next time. We didn't address any comments. Well, I guess you addressed one specifically. The disagreement about Perrin and about Verin.
Scott, you need to specify what you were talking about there, because that sounds vaguely familiar. Do you know what he's talking about? Of the white cloaks had killed we know of them killing an Aes Sedai, and it was someone who had already been stilled. That sounds vaguely familiar, but I'm not sure what he's talking about there.
No, yeah, I don't know. And I'm also, do you know what he was referring to with Alana? Not quite yet.
Oh, well, yeah. I think I meant to bring that up last time, but I didn't have really anything specific to talk about of bonding someone against their will.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not quite yet. Give it a couple of books and she will.
Yeah. Okay, so I get that now.
That was another one of those. I don't know if it was intended to be a red herring all along or what, but that never really went anywhere.
It allowed for Cadsuane to find Rand
True.
in Farmodding. But yeah, the conclusion of it, as far as I know, she
just fizzled.
Yeah,
literally.
I mean, technically, she was still bonded with him, right?
No, she like her last dying breath, she whispers to Nynaeve that she released the bond.
Okay, all right. Well, you more recently read that, so
yeah,
I will defer.
Oh, all right.
Oh, she died.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks. All the pretty ones died.
A lot of them did. That's for sure.
Well, a lot of people died.
Speaking of,
it was the final battle.
Speaking of the pretty ones, did I see a really terrible picture of Avienda? Are we going to have to rant about that when we get to Rand's storyline?
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, that's just great. Thank you, Prime. At least I don't have to watch Rings of Power because I know it's going to be a steaming, festering pile of feces. But I guess we've kind of locked ourselves into watching season 2 of this abomination.
Well, I was thinking of something as we were talking here. Have you read any of Sanderson's other stuff?
I have, and what I remember of Sanderson's work is that they're all very quickly engaging. He's very good about drawing you in, but then the stories always kind of fizzle and aren't memorable. Like okay, I can tell you I have read a number of his books and at least one series. I couldn't tell you which ones, and I couldn't tell you that much about what they were about.
Because what I was kind of thinking in my head was, if we read some of his other work and then compared it to what he did with Wheel of Time, you could kind of probably tease out what was from the notes and what was his.
Yeah, that's true.
So we start kind of putting that in your mind for spoiler stuff as we go forward.
I should give my kids that as a homework assignment because they're actually perfect. They have actually read and really like and talk about and remember kind of the way we do with Wheel of Time with one of Sanderson's. I think it's the series called The Way of Kings. I think it's like a 5-part series or something like that. I'll have to ask them. I don't remember. They had been reading it and talking about it with each other for a while before it finally dawned on me. Wait a minute. Is this series about this and this stuff happens? Oh, I have read that. Okay. Like I said, it just wasn't all that memorable to me.
Well, I've been playing through Dragon Age again, and I'm almost done with Origins. I'm about to go on to the second one, but there's so many Wheel of Time nuggets in there that I can't help but think are on purpose. I referenced Logain as one of the protagonists, but the fact that the bards are the assassins and the political spies, which would bring us on the Tom arc, all these little things along those lines. And now that I'm playing through it again after having reread all the books, I'm like, I'm seeing them all as we're going through, so it's kind of fun.
Oh, that's we could talk about places where we see influence that aren't as depressing and horrible as the series that actually shares its name, but we'll have to do that some other time. All right, well, I got nothing else. Thank y'all for joining us for our rambling, brain fogged, incoherent discussion of a couple of chapters of Shadow Rising. Hopefully I will be more focused next time.
Yep. The brain fog is real with the comic cough, but at the same time we also know we have to keep pumping out the content. So If you like it, subscribe, share, do whatever you want. Comment. We'll always get the Scott comments, but I think we got a new subscriber, so you can comment as well.
Huzzah.
Huzzah. And no disclaimers for this. It's a book review.
Yeah.
I didn't give disclaimers in the last one though. Damn
Words aren't violence. If you're triggered by a book, grow up.
it. But it's the product of the patriarchy.
Uh-huh.
The violence inherent in the system. Violence inherent in the system.
Shut up. Shut up. All right. All right. Well, we'll see y'all next time.